Hello and welcome to Transfermarkt TV. I'm your host Manuel Veth. He's Stefan Bienkowski, and today's topic is Lionel Messi. He won the FIFA Best Man's Player Award on Monday. Won it ahead of Kylian Mbappe and Karim Benzema, of course the two French strikers. Stefan, we've had this debate in the office on chats. Do you think this is a deserved recognition for Lionel Messi?
Yeah, I think just off the bat, at the very top of this discussion, we should probably both acknowledge that we both probably think individual awards in football are just these kind of divisive, argumentative, seemingly designed tools just to get good friends like us to fight with one another. Never mind strangers on Twitter or Instagram or Reddit or whatever else. And I think that's because it's so difficult to kind of nail down, whether a player deserves it, what the criteria are, because you inevitably start, comparing one player to the next. And I just kind of feel like if you do kind of take Messi's, I think if I'm not mistaken, the voting criteria for this was from August 2021 to December 2022. So, of course, something very important happened in December, and that's exactly why Messi has won this award. I think there's a fair argument to be made there. But if you then kind of look through the history of not only the competition, but even just football over that kind of 12-month, 14-month period, then I think it's very hard to really argue that Messi was the very best player in the world over the course of that, and I'll kind of explain why. If you go on the Transfermarkt website, we also have a tool that kind of shows you how many goals and assists each player scores in a calendar year. And for the year of 2022, Messi was seventh. So there were six players across Europe's top leagues who scored more goals and assists. And if you even kind of want to break that down into seasons, he wasn't even in the top half of the 20. He wasn't even in the top 25 actually for goals and assists last season. He's second to Erling Haaland for goals and assists this season. So he certainly is having a much better season for PSG this time around than last year. But it's not as if the first half of 2022 was a stellar year for Messi. So on an individual level, domestically, I don't think there's any real argument that he was the best player in the world. And then if you do kind of want to turn this round to say, well, he won a major international tournament, I think there's also some kind of grey areas or inconsistencies there too. Because, if this award was based purely on, players who helped their nations win, an international tournament, then the award itself. Now, of course, I know it's been kind of amalgamated with the Ballon d'Or and things, so it's maybe a little tricky. But even if you just kind of go through the history or the recent history of these individual awards, it's not exact. There's no kind of clear cut rule or straight line that you can draw or trend even to suggest that if you win the World Cup, you win the Ballon d'Or because or even just something like the Euros, for example. If it was based on winning international tournaments, surely Jorginho at Italy would have been in the running in 2021, and he ended up finishing seventh, if I'm not mistaken, or sixth rather. And of course the big obvious one is the fact that 4 years ago France won the World Cup, and over the course of that tournament you had Antoine Griezmann and you had Kylian Mbappe, who finished first and third in the tournament's kind of goals and assists tally over the course of the tournament, and both players even scored in the final itself. To win the World Cup for France, but on the day, neither of them won the Ballon d'Or or the FIFA Best Man Award, or whatever you want to call it, from back then. So it's hard for me to kind of look at this and say, oh, Messi won it because he won the World Cup, and that's when the player's supposed to win it. Or he won it because he scored the most goals and assists for PSG or Barcelona, because he didn't do that either. So I think it ultimately comes down to kind of something of a kind of popularity contest or, a recency bias where everyone still has the World Cup fresh in their minds. And of course, Messi is such a beloved footballer. He's been arguably the player of his generation. And when the kind of voting goes out for club captains or, football managers or even the fans now, I think, get a vote, then obviously Messi's maybe kind of on the tip of everyone's tongue. But I'm just not really sure he actually really was the very best player in the world at these periods. And yeah, that's why I'm not entirely sure he did deserve to win this award.
Yeah, no, you raised some really important points. I think the ones that you bring up with the tournament, right? It used to be before the Messi and Ronaldo era that the FIFA Best Man's Player Award or whatever it was called before that, it's gone through many different reiterations, right? Used to be handed to the a World Cup winner. I think the last one, the last example was really Fabio Cannavaro in 2006. Then, of course, Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi came along. And for a long time, it was just a popularity contest between the two. Remember, of course, in 2014, it should have probably been Manuel Neuer over Messi, right? I would say that, though, because of the last two, the best FIFA Men's Awards going to Robert Lewandowski, unlike the Ballon d'Or, which, a lot of people criticized last year because it went to Messi rather than Lewandowski. I think it's almost gone back to that original form of you play a fantastic tournament and you are getting this award. And I think that while Lionel Messi for his club in the first half of 2022 wasn't really that outstanding, his season this far has been incredible. 17 goals and 16 assists and 28 games. That includes 4 goals and 4 assists in 6 Champions League games, which I think is very impressive for a 35-year-old. So he does still carry his team, right? We have to, of course, completely ignore the Champions League fixture against Bayern Munich, where he wasn't that impactful because that wasn't part of the voting process. Then comes the World Cup, and he had 7 goals and 3 assists in 7 games. And although I do think Argentina had a good team, this was probably a team that was weaker than the 2 previous editions that went to World Cups, right? And that they finally did manage to get the World Cup, win the World Cup. I think this is entirely on Messi's back. That final where he did basically go to toe with Kylian Mbappe, and I think many people can agree that Kylian Mbappe is very much going to take over the mantle of Lionel Messi once Messi does retire. I think that was very impressive. And yes, there is a recency bias. Yes, we vote probably on what we've seen very recently, but I think also that considering what Messi has done for his country and sort of the burden that has come with the whole Diego Maradona succession, right? Never really quite fulfilling that sort of expectation that was placed in him by an entire nation, a football mad nation. We all saw the pictures from Buenos Aires when Argentina finally did win the World Cup, the madness and chaos and what it meant for the country when Lionel Messi finally did it. And I think that is something that we kind of underestimate. And yeah, I think you raised some very good important points here, Stefan. There's a few players that come to mind that I think on a individual basis probably played better seasons when you exclude that World Cup. But for me, just that World Cup performance. And if that is now the measurement stick that we do use to go forward, I have no problem with Lionel Messi winning this particular award. But Stefan, any final thoughts on this before we ask our users what they think?
No, I mean, I think you make a very good point. I think we're kind of almost in agreement to an extent that it's almost comes down to the narrative that these players weave, and that's ultimately what football is. It's a game of stories as much as it is a game of stats or market values. And I think obviously Messi weaved this fantastic narrative, and he managed to getting Argentina to win the World Cup was a career-defining achievement. So I completely understand that, but I think that then kind of suggests that these tournaments or these awards something more akin to like an Oscar rather than a Nobel Prize, perhaps, where it comes down to the emotions of the people who are voting rather than any technical achievement. But yeah, I think it's worth maybe putting this to our fans and our viewers and our users and guess and see what they think.
Yeah, so please leave a comment in the comment section. Let us know, Messi, deserved or not deserved. Is he the best footballer in the world at this very moment? Let us know, and we'll be back soon. Until then, cheers and bye-bye.